She cheated on me with the guy that I thought was her cousin. This happened 1998, give or take a year. I was about 22 and had been dating this girl for about 1.5 years. She was amazingly gorgeous, smart and funny, so I was pretty crazy about her. She was only 1 year younger than me, but she still lived with her dad and he was really strict. He has a bunch of rules for her, including curfews, even though she was 21. Amazingly, he thought she was a zero-time romancer, but I wasn't even her first. Eventually he figured out we were having romance and told her she couldn't see me anymore. We continued dating, but it was more difficult because she was always sneaking. She would often use her cousin as an excuse to get to me, but she would frequently go by his place for a while so she could have a cover story. She said they had been really close since they were kids, so this was normal. Eventually I found out that her cousin wasn't actually her cousin. He was her dad's best friend's son, but her story was that she has always called him cousin and thought of him as a cousin. I started noticing more and more things that seemed unusual and I got really suspicious. One day she told me she was having lunch at a certain restaurant and would then come over. Shortly after that I got a message on my pager that said meet at Red Lobster at 12. Then I got another message telling me that message was meant for her dad. I jetted over to the restaurant and spotted her car and I parked way back. Another car pulls up, her cousin gets out, they hug and kiss and go inside. I went back home to wallow in my misery. I cancelled our date for that day, but didn't tell her what I knew. I soon came up with my evil plan. I must tell you about any incident that happened earlier in our relationship. One day she was getting dressed and I snapped a picture of her butt with an old Polaroid. It was just a close-up of her butt and there was no way to ID her from the picture. I didn't think she would care at all. She got insanely mad. I've never seen her so mad. She was ready to fight for that picture, but I made no effort to keep it from her. She started trying to rip it up, but couldn't. I told her to hand it to me and I would cut it up. She gets a pen and starts marking it up, then finds scissors and cut it up. I burned the remains in front of her. She stayed mad for a while and lectured me over and over how she did not want any nude pictures of her to ever exist. I can't stress enough how much she hated the idea of anybody having pictures of her. She was horrified. She didn't talk to me for about a week and we almost broke up, but she finally accepted that I really didn't think it would have bothered her and that I would never try it again. Moving on. I had my plan together and we made plans for her to come to my place. I was renting a decent house with my best friend, but lived like a bachelor. Very little furniture in my room. I had a bed, computer table with a chair, dresser and an alarm clock on the floor by my bed. I went and got an extra chair from the kitchen and placed it at the foot of my bed. I got another alarm clock and put it on the chair. I intended to make it look obviously out of place. She came over and we had romance. I kept my cool and strung this along for another 2 weeks or so, having romance 2 to 3 times per week. I made a point to do different positions and try and keep her angled in a way that the alarm clock was looking directly at her. I wanted to keep it going, but decided enough was enough. Right before we left on the last day, I unplugged the clock, sat it next to my computer and carried the chair to a different room. I made sure she saw me, but made it look like I was just cleaning up. I started getting cold feet about my plan because I knew how mean it was. I decided to wait a day, which turned to 2, and finally after about 1 week I decided to call and confront her. I still wasn't sure if I was going to take revenge or not. I made the call and told her I knew she was seeing cousin, can't remember his name. She denied, but I told her that somebody told me they saw them kissing. She finally admitted it but claimed it just started this week. I asked, how can you duck your cousin? She said, you know, he's not really my cousin. We argue a bit more and I tell her that I've known for a month. Then she tried to turn it around on me for not saying something when I found out, and she made a really smart butt comment that I can't remember. I then told her that there was one last thing that she would really want to know. Me, do you remember that alarm clock sitting on the chair by my bed? Her, yeah. Me, never wondered why it was there? Her, not really. Me, think about the last several times we had romance, How we did doggy at the foot of the bed, cowgirl with you facing the foot and so on. What the duck are you saying? Me, it was a ducking spy cam, you disgusting, cause in ducking cheating witch. I slammed the phone down. I had called from a payphone for some reason. My pager blew up for the next several hours. It didn't stop vibrating for a solid 30 minutes before I turned it back on. My phone home was lit up with VMs. Her messages started with screaming and crying, then threats, then begging, then offering bribes, and then she would go right back through the same cycle. The next day she came to my house and knocked on the door for at least an hour, but I didn't answer. The calls and messages kept coming for weeks even though the frequency was peacefully deleted down a lot. She also came to my house a few more times, but I never answered and sometimes I wasn't home. I finally answered a phone call, but when she started asking for the tapes, I told her that I didn't know what she was talking about. I listened to her beg, cry, plead, and I would eventually chime in with I don't know what tapes you are talking about. I hung up and never spoke to her again. The calls and messages eventually stopped and I went on with my life. There never was a hidden camera, but she doesn't know that to this day. It was just an old radio alarm clock that looked just clunky enough to pass as spy cam if you aren't paying attention. I grew to regret it because it probably tortured her for a long time and it only took me about 6 months to get over my broken heart.
Hey guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out, thanks.
Dang, and I thought we were going to get the secret spy cam vids at the end. Maybe OP is holding out on us. Haha, she was quite the looker, so that would be nice, but even if I had them I could no longer be vindictive enough to do that. I might have done it back then if I had actually recorded her. It took like 10 minutes to email a single picture on that 1990s dial-up speed though. Her cousin? You sure they weren't going bowling? Is that a GTA reference? Is that a GTA reference? I'd say that's a fair price for her cheating on you. No real harm was done, except maybe to her psychological state. Then again, if she thought cheating on you was okay, she obviously wasn't in the best state of mind anyways. Good on you, OP. Psychological revenge is the most insidious. Well done. Pretty sure this is what happened right before the start of Star Wars. You are a ducking genius. Destroy her with her own speculation. Highest of 5s.